Travelers around the world have been feeling the disappointment and sadness of not being able to travel during this pandemic. Some people even had epic plans that are now canceled indefinitely, and others are feeling anxious about whether or not they would be able to travel anywhere this year. So let's see the 15 countries you can visit without COVID restrictions. Number 15, Egypt. If you're willing to see the land of the pyramids, you can start planning. All you need to do is present a negative PCR test certificate for the virus issued from the country of departure, a maximum of 72 hours before flight departure time. But if you're traveling from Japan, China, Thailand, North America, South America, Canada, London Heathrow, Paris, and Frankfurt, you will be allowed to provide the test certificate performed a maximum of 96 hours before flight time due to the long travel and transit period at these airports. Kids of all nationalities under 6 years of age are exempted from the PCR test. Number 14, Malta. Even though Malta is open for visitors, there are some limits on some countries. When you arrive, you will need to fill in the public health travel declaration and the passenger locator forms when you leave. People will also be required to follow the medical protocol, which looks like this. PCR test done within 7 days of flying to Malta, which must be negative. PCR test done on days 7 to 10 from arrival in Malta. Observe quarantine in isolation for full 14 days from arrival in Malta. Number 13, Chile. If you want to visit Chile, you need to complete an affidavit of travelers before boarding your flight and then hand over a negative COVID PCR test no older than 72 hours. Make sure you have the PCR results because the rapid tests are not accepted for entry into Chile. In the affidavit, you will be asked to indicate the countries you were last in the last 14 days. They also want to know if you had contact with a person sick with the virus in the last 14 days. Also, don't forget the fact that Chile is under a daily nationwide curfew from 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. Number 12, Jamaica. Jamaica was among the first destinations to reopen to travelers last year and remains one of the most accessible and enticing places in 2021. The Caribbean island country was forced to put what would likely have been a record-breaking tourism year on hold in 2020 in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic, but they have rebounded in the months since by enacting strict protocols designed to keep both visitors and locals safe. Jamaica's website has clear instructions for anyone entering, but you're welcome if you comply with supplying a negative COVID test result through their online travel authorization. Number 11, Zambia. The rewards of traveling in Zambia are those of exploring the remote, mesmerizing wilderness as full of an astonishing diversity of wildlife as any part of southern Africa. To enter the country, you will need a negative COVID-19 test no older than 14 days before arrival. There is no requirement for visitors to self-isolate for 14 days upon arrival. However, all returning residents must do so. And yes, it is one of the most perfect places to visit during a pandemic. Number 10, Andorra. There is a tiny country between Spain and France that most people, even well-traveled Europeans, don't know about. As the country in the mountains, Andorra's tourism was always focused on its beautiful nature, and the COVID-19 restrictions are not so strict there. So if you want to travel to somewhere with amazingly chilling nature, here you have the best option. All you will need is a negative PCR test result no older than 48 hours before arriving there. While you are there, you will need to have a TMA and a rapid antigen test. After that, you need to self-isolate, and then every few days after your arrival, you need to have an antigen test done again and then stay and enjoy the country. Number 9, Turkey. Turkey's international land, sea, and air borders are open to foreign travelers who meet Turkish immigration rules. Passengers arriving in Turkey are required to submit a negative PCT test. The sample for the test must have been taken within 72 hours prior to the passenger's scheduled departure from the country of origin. This applies to all passengers ages 6 and over, except sailors, truck drivers, and transit passengers. You will need to complete the passenger information form when arriving, and then you will undergo a medical examination. But don't forget that dining establishments like restaurants or cafes are no longer open for in-person dining and are only offering delivery services. Movie theaters, lounges, Turkish baths, and amusement parks are also closed. So if you want to go there, you're going to have plenty of time to get to know the nature and culture without doing all these other activities. Number 8, Bangladesh. Bangladesh is South Asia's greenest jewel, a country braided with rivers, a rich culture waiting to be explored by pioneering travelers. Bangladesh is letting people in if they supply a medical certificate with English translation showing that you are totally negative from this creepy virus. But even with the negative test results, you will need to home quarantine for 14 days upon arrival, so you better plan a long trip there. Number 7, South Korea. If you have never been to South Korea, consider yourself as a traveler. You are not really a traveler. How could you miss this amazing place? And after months in dormancy due to the raging pandemic, the travel industry is gearing up for a return to some normalcy with borders reopening, the easing of quarantine requirements, and one of those countries is South Korea. There is one strict rule: mandatory to present a negative PCR test certificate carried out less than 48 hours before departure. Depending on visa and health status, travelers might be subjected to either institutional or home quarantine. If you are traveling to Korea for a short period of time, you will likely be prescribed an institutional quarantine at a government-designated facility, and it will be at your own expense. The exemption applies to foreign nationals who are family members of Korean nationals or foreign nationals of a long-term stay. If you do not exhibit symptoms of the infection upon arrival, or you are a South Korean national or long-term foreign visitor with an alien registration card and Korean resident, you are eligible to serve 14 days of quarantine at home. Number 6. Ethiopia. It has the largest population of any landlocked country in the world, with mountains over 45. Number 5. Belarus. Alright, let us tell that if you somehow make it to Europe, Belarus is a must-visit place. Belarus is a landlocked country in Europe, whose capital city is Minsk. It is bordered by Russia, Poland, Ukraine, Lithuania, and Latvia. Over 40% of Belarus is the forest, and so you get to visit the dense forest and lie in the lap of nature. Unlike the rest of Europe and neighboring Russia and Ukraine, Belarus did not impose a national lockdown and remained the only country in the region which kept its borders open, even though the country's health ministry issued recommendations for COVID prevention and physical distancing. Even the negative PCT test is not required to enter. There is no curfew, no need to quarantine, but you will undergo health screening procedures at airports, and after that, you're free to spend your vacation there. Number 4. Kenya. When you think of Africa, you probably think of Kenya. It is the lone silhouette on the savannah against a horizon stretching into eternity. It is the snow-capped mountain almost on the equator and within sight of harsh deserts. All you need to do to visit this African gem is a negative PCR result and a health screening upon arrival. There is no need to quarantine, and they will let you enjoy your time there as a traveler. Number 3. Thailand. From December 7, 2020, travelers from more than 55 countries can enter Thailand under the visa exemption scheme. However, these travelers still need to comply with Thailand's 14-day mandatory quarantine and show proof of a negative PCR test. Anyone eligible to enter must obtain a certificate of entry from their local Thai embassy or consulate. Your application should be submitted at least 10 working days prior to the intended date of travel. You will need proof of health insurance that covers COVID medical examination and treatment of up to $100,000 minimum. Number 2. The Bahamas. With 16 major islands, the Bahamas are an unmatched destination, a heart-pounding adventure across 100,000 square miles of the world's clearest ocean. Anyone older than 11 years old needs to have a negative PCR test result, and you are required to have COVID-19 health insurance. You will definitely get enough vitamin D there, so maybe it's time for you to sign up. Just think about that. Number 1. Namibia. If Namibia is Africa for beginners, as is often said, what a wonderful place to start. All you have to do to enjoy the amazing nature is to present a negative COVID PCR test result from your country of departure, which is not older than 7 days. And once you're there, make sure to visit Susisevli. It is a desert that is home to the world's largest sand dunes, and it's breathtakingly beautiful. So what are your travel plans like? Let us know in the comments down below. Make sure you subscribe to our channel and turn on those post notifications so you never miss a video from us. If you liked the video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. See you in the next video, and thank you for watching.